Hey, what is going on, guys? It's DK. Back at you with another video here to break down the 4-game CSGO main slate on Saturday. Before I get into the video, for you guys who are new to the channel, my name's DK. I make daily videos breaking down NBA, NFL, and esports daily fantasy sports slates. Esports including Call of Duty, League of Legends, and this one, Counter-Strike CSGO. Also, I just want to say thank you guys all so much for all the support. Really, in the YouTube comment section, on Twitter, in my DMs, really do appreciate all the support. And yeah, with that out of the way, let's jump into the video. So yeah, before we get into players and the prices for this slate, let's look back at my lineup here from Friday's slate. So Friday's slate went really, really well for me. Almost took down a tournament, finished in 11th place here in the $33 tournament. So this is my final lineup. I put Zybu in the captain spot. I knew he was going to be the ultimate chalk. He went off, like more than normal, 77 and 39. He had 4 kills, 1 kill the whole team. He had a crazy game. And then I went Olivia, Rops, Frozen, Alistar, and Ricky. So yeah, Alistar and Ricky, those are 2 guys I mentioned. Their prices was way too cheap for them being favorites and for their overall stats. And they went off in a huge way. Alistar was pretty popular. Ricky, not as much, but both were really, really solid. Rops and Frozen, I got to mention them. I like that Mouse Esports side better than the Straws. I didn't get the pricing for the Straws, guys. It didn't make sense. So Rops was only 52% owned. I expect him to be higher owned than that. He had an amazing day. Frozen was a little bit of a letdown. It was actually Woxic, the one you wanted if you want that. 2 guys in Mouse Sports. And then Olivia, I wish he did a little bit better. They did end up winning 2-0, but he just had the worst day out of everyone on his team. Now, he had the best overall numbers. Again, I couldn't really break down that game other than I just had to go off the numbers since I haven't really seen any of those teams play. And then obviously Zywu in the captain spot. So overall, it's a really good day. We had a couple guys do really well that tweeted me, so congrats on your really good days. And let's see if we can keep it going for Saturday's slate. So again, we got 4 games. They're mixing it again with the DreamHack and the Blast tournaments. All 4 of these matches are best of 3. Let's take a look at some odds here. So if Answers, Mouse Esports. Mouse Esports are -140 favorites. Fnatic and Vitality. Fnatic are -130 favorites. So both these 2 games, again, very, very close. Could go either way. And then Avant versus Order, same thing. Avant, slight favorites at -125, but another toss-up. And then finally, we have Vici Gaming versus Beyond. Vici Gaming are -950 favorites. Enormous favorites. So, right, if we're just don't even look at price tags, right? If we're just looking at odds and you're playing cash games, I think going with a 2 or 3-man Vici Gaming stack probably makes sense, right? If you're just looking at odds, ignoring everything else, they're the biggest saves of the day. That's probably how I would go about it if I was going cash games. I'll probably get at least 2 Vici Gaming players. But yeah, let's go into it now. So let's talk about players' prices. First game here, we have Order versus Avant. Again, this one's a toss-up. Avant are slight favorites there at -125. The price tags in this game look pretty good on both sides. First, let's talk about the Order side. So you had Alistar. Again, I mentioned him being one of my favorite plays on today's slate. And he did really good. I think he had over 100 fancy points. He is probably going to be the chalkiest player in Order once again. But there are other options too. You have Valiance's decent numbers, 0.7 kills per round, 0.63 deaths per round. Stello at 0.72 and 0.64, and then Ricky at 0.73 and 0.58. Jira right about even. So looking at their prices, right? Jira 5.6K. Don't know if we have to do it on this slate. I think there's just slightly better value options for a little bit more. So yeah, unless you're going to complete stars and scrubs, but I don't know if there's a need to do it. The other guys, though, look pretty good, right? Stello, Valiance, Ricky, all priced pretty cheap, 7.27K and 6.8K respectively. Then you have Alistar at 7.6K. So this is a side that, if we just look at the prices, it looks pretty good. I think, the 2 most popular plays on the side would be Alistar and Ricky, but Valiance and Stello have really good numbers as well, right? If you just look at the fantasy points per game, very close to Ricky. Obviously, Alistar is a little bit better because of that huge game today. But I think all 4 of those guys are definitely in play. Again, Alistar, If if you like players that use the op, he does use the op, the most powerful gun in the game. That is always a plus. I always want to mention that in these videos, who uses the op and which team. But yeah, that's kind of my breakdown there for order. On the Avant side, so the thing I like about this Avant team is you kind of know where their production is. Now, starting with Sterling, right? Just looking at those numbers, 0.82 kills per round, 0.56 deaths per round. I know he's a little bit more expensive than those order guys, but it's for good reason. This guy has enormous upside. The 2 games that they have on Draftkings for the DreamHack tournament, he went 40 and 31, and then 76 and 60. So, yeah, he does really stand out as a really good spend up. Again, since this is a best of 3, I think you could, if you wanted to, play players from both sides. I mean, you could make the argument for that in best of 1 if it stays really close. But yeah, like I said, I think either side is viable here. It's almost a toss up. But Sterling definitely my favorite play, even though he's the most expensive. Everyone else on the Avant team, I think Blitz looks pretty decent. Blitz and who was the other one? Hazard. Those are the 2 guys that look probably the next best. I mean, everyone else is positive on this team, so you could make the argument for everyone. Blitz is at 6.6K. Yeah, I think for his price, he would probably be my next favorite. Again, you really can make the argument for all these guys, though, because they all have pretty decent numbers. They're all decently cheap. So this is a game where I don't think it's going to be as high owned because not very well-known teams, right? And I haven't got, I've watched Order a couple times. Avant, I haven't really got to watch. So all I can really go off on this Avant side is kind of just the numbers. But looking at their numbers, they're all pretty good. And Sterling really stands out the most. So that's kind of the breakdown there for the first game. Again, I think this game might be a little bit lower owned because it's basically a pick'em, and you just have not as well-known names, right? I think the guys in the Mouse Esports Nth side and Vitality Fnatic side are just going to be a lot higher owned. But these guys certainly have upside, right? We saw it with those order guys today. Alistar, Ricky. Alistar had like 100, Ricky had like 80 plus. A couple of those other guys in the order side had pretty good games as well. So don't avoid this game. There's definitely some real upside here if you can get this one right. Next, we have Ents versus Mouse Esports. So we have Ents, or Mouse Esports, I should say, slight favorites at minus 140. Finally starting to get back to, one of the more dominant teams here in CSGO. They won versus Astralis 2-0. Now, Astralis has really been struggling, so you can kind of take that with a grain of salt, I guess. But the thing I always like about these Mouse Esports guys is you know where the production is coming from, right? It's Rops, Frozen, and Woxic, Chris J, and Kerrigan. Again, I just don't even consider them, unless like Mouse Esports are huge favorites. I'm going for the 2-0. It's just, I don't care what their prices are. It's not worth it, in my opinion, to take a shot on one of those guys in your lineup, right? Chris J, terrible numbers. Kerrigan, even worse. So it's just 2 guys I avoid always unless they're huge favorites. But now we have Rops, Frozen, and Woxic. So Rops is the best overall numbers, but now you're getting a little bit of separation with him and Frozen and Woxic. So now it's going to be a tough call for me, right? Because I think Rops, if you can get to him, is still the best play, but now he's more expensive, right? And then you have Frozen and Woxic, not as good of numbers, but still decent, right? You have Frozen at 0.68 and 0.65, Woxic at 0.67 and 0.64. Both those guys have had the upside or have flashed pretty big upside. Frozen can take over games. I think I like his upside a little bit more than Woxic, but that's just me personally. You are getting Woxic at $600 less. Again, Woxic does use the op too. That's always a plus. Because, in rounds, it can help your KD if you use the op, right? Because say your team loses a couple players early and they just want to save the round, right? Save the op. That's always the call, is to make sure you save the op. So, that is, I guess, a slight plus for guys that use the op in their KD, right? It can help them a little bit on those rounds. But yeah, really for me, honestly, it's a really tough call with the top 3 guys, Rops, Frozen, and Woxic. I do like them all a good amount. Personally, I'm probably going to go with this Mouse Esports side. I think they are the better team versus Ents. Now, if you look at the history against these 2 teams, it's pretty close. Mouse Esports a 3-2 advantage versus Ents. Both teams are solid. I just think I like the price points a little bit better on these Mouse Esports side. And again, you know where the production's coming from. It's from those top 3 guys. So it's not like one of those teams where there's like all 5 guys are viable, right? You know if Mouse Esports are winning, a couple of those top 3 guys are going to have big games with Rops, Frozen, and Woxic. So that's why I like this Mouse Esports side. That's why I think I like them slightly better than the Ents side. Now, that doesn't make the Ents side out of play, right? Because Alu here at 9K, Stands out as a good spend up if that's the way you want to go. Now, I think you can play, again, players from both sides in this one. This one's, if you're looking at the Vegas sides, it's almost a toss-up. I think they're pretty two even matched teams. Alou uses the op. He's the guy that really does carry this roster if you're looking at his numbers compared to everyone else. The most recent game there against NIP went 29-18. He can really have upside, right? He can have upside too. In a best of 3 series, he had 135 there against Copenhagen Flames. He put up 87 against Vitality, 90 against Ninjas in Pajamas, 85 against Fnatic, right? So we know the upside is pretty high in this guy. And again, I think you can, if you really want to, play someone in Mouse Esports and then run it back with a Lou if you think the game's going to be really close and goes 3 games, right? That's certainly a viable strategy. Now, everyone else on the team was Sergey, Sonny, Ariel, and Jampy. Let's take a look at their numbers. So Ariel's at slightly negative there, 0.63 and 0.69. You got Sergey at about even. Jampy at slightly positive, but he is a new addition to the team, so those numbers might be a little bit skewed. And then Sonny slightly negative there, 0.64 and 0.7. I think Jampy, for his price, right? I know it's a slight risk since he's a new member of the team, but he's been pretty decent. Last couple games, 21 and 21, 23 and 18, right? Those aren't bad. Before that, right, a little bit up and down. A couple of games where he's negative. The first game he went 48 and 39. But, he's 5.4K. So I think he stands out probably the most out of everyone else if we're looking at their prices, right? So if you want to go to the end side, I think it would probably be Alou for me and then Jampy. Sergey, Sonny, and Ariel. If I had to pick a third, I guess it would be Sergey at 7.2K. But I don't think I want to go a 3-man stack for ends. I think the two guys I'm considering going to be Alou at the top and then Jampy down there for a value option. Next, let's talk about Vici Gaming versus Beyond. So this is where I think you're going to get some chalk, right? I don't know. I really haven't got to see either of these teams, but I'm kind of surprised Vici Gaming are that big of favorites at minus 950. Looking at the world rankings, you have Beyond at 96 and then Vici at 67th. And I guess it kind of makes sense, right? Vici they have won all 4 games, and they've won them pretty easily, right? 16-3, 16-10, 16-8, and 16-10. I don't know. You can look at their past matches, right? Both lost to Tyloo. Both beat Lucid Dream. I don't know if it should be that big of favorites. That's what I'm saying. But for cash games, again, I think you're going to want to target these Vici guys for sure. Let's talk about the Beyond side first. So this is a team that's going to go pretty much unowned because of those Vegas odds. But I don't know if I necessarily agree with this. Now, again, I'm kind of just going off of numbers because I haven't really got to see either of these teams play. But I think there's a slight chance Beyond could take them maybe. So, if we're looking at their numbers, let's take a look here. Olivia has the best overall numbers of 0.75 kills per round, 0.64 deaths per round, and he was the worst today, though. You actually had KNTZ had the best day. Now, I think he had the worst overall stats on the team. No, it's Marles, or however you pronounce his name. I think it probably would be QQ God, Olivia, and KNTZ. I think those are the 3 guys that have the most upside. Again, KNTZ had a big day today. It's not up there, but he was the best player there on the Beyond side. I don't know if I would trust that, though. It probably would be Olivia and QQ God if I was gonna take a shot here again. It's very, very risky. You could maybe use this one as like a one-off, but for cash games, you got to avoid these guys for sure. Now let's talk about the Vici Gaming side. So yeah, this is where I would load up. I would probably get at least a couple here for cash games because they are the biggest favorites of the day and huge, huge favorites. Again, I don't know if I necessarily agree with them being that big of favorites, but let's take a look at their prices. The prices look really good in these guys. That's why they're going to be super, super popular on this slate. You have Amin at 8.2, Jam Young at 8K, K's at 7.8K, and Zoinking at 7K. Advents, even at that price, well, I wouldn't say you avoid them because you're hoping for the 2-0 there. It's a best of 3 series. If you get that 2-0, you get that plus 20 bonus. So I guess he is in play. He does not have good numbers, right? 0.51 kills per round and 0.64 deaths per round. But if you play him, right, at 4.8K, that's what you're hoping for. You're hoping for that 2-0. But I don't know on this slate if you have to go someone that cheap, so I still don't know if I would do it. Everyone else, though, you have Alman, his numbers at 0.73 and 0.65. Zoinking at 0.69 and 0.74, so he's slightly negative. K's 0.72 and 0.60, and Jam Young 0.78 and 0.65. So probably Jam Young, Almond, and then K's would be how to rank them because again, all I can really go off is their numbers. All three have pretty good numbers. You have Almond at the top at 8.2, Jam Young at 8K, and K's at 7.8K. So I think probably getting two of those guys in your lab for cash games is the optimal build for tomorrow. Again, that's talking about cash. But yeah, I think those top three guys do look really good. Zoinking's going to be a lot lower owned. If you want to go with this Vici Gaming stack and get a little bit different, you could go Zoinking, right? But that's kind of the breakdown there for the Vici side. And lastly, we have Vitality versus Fnatic. So the big question here for me is how popular is ZywOo going to be tomorrow? I mean, he was, like 90% owned on the last slate. I think he's going to be up there. I don't know if he'll be that high owned, but I think 85 or so, 80%. He's going to be really, really high owned. He's been absolutely on fire, ZywOo has. They don't have that most recent game up there, but again, he had like almost 200 fantasy points in my captain spot. Yeah, like the last 4 or 5 games, he's been dominant. And his numbers are amazing. 0.8 kills per round, 0.61 deaths per round, all against really, really good competition. A 1.26 rating 2.0. So ZywOo does really stand out. But I think you could make the argument to fade if he's going to be that high owned in GPPs. Again, cash games, you play him. Don't get cute, right? He is an optimal play for sure. At 8.8K, that's too cheap. But for GPPs, again, if you think that ownership is to be that high, I think you could make the argument to fade. Because ZywOo, in games they lose, right? He's been putting up these big games because they've been winning every game. In games they lose, he does have a relatively low floor, right? 48 there against Ents, 49 against Astralis, 54 against OG, 35 in a game they won 2-0 against NIP, 25 in a game they won 2-1 against Ents. So 41 against Godsend, right? So, he does have somewhat of a low floor. He hasn't shown it recently, and that's why I think the ownership is going to be through the roof. But I think there's a chance he could bust for his price tomorrow. Again, if you think the ownership gets that high, you could definitely make the argument to fade for GPPs. Now, again, cash games, don't worry about ownership. Play ZywOo, play the Vici guys, move on. But for GPPs, I think, again, if that ownership gets too high, if you think it gets too high, you could make the argument to fade. Now, everyone else in the team, you guys kind of know how my breakdown is of these guys. Apex Shocks missed to an RBK. I watched so much, I really cannot get a good answer for you. Apex and Shocks, they're the next highest priced guys. I think they do have the next most upside, but missed to an RBK have also flashed it. They're all very, very similar plays. They have very similar numbers. Right, to scroll through them again, right, 0.65 and 0.68 for RPK, Apex 0.64 and 0.69, Shocks, he will use the op a little bit, 0.66 and 0.65, he's the only one that is slightly positive and missed to 0.62 and 0.66, so they're all pretty similar. I think Shocks, looking at ownership, recently in Vitality games, he's always seems to be the number 2 guy behind ZywOo, so he'll probably be the second most popular play of the day there for Vitality. And then last we have Fnatic. So this Fnatic team has been very up and down, but they have won the last 3 games against pretty good teams. VP 16-7, Mouse Sports 16-14, and Fnatic 16-9. So, looking at their prices, we have Brolon at 8K, Flusha at 7.8, and Crims at 7.4K. So that last slate, I believe you had Brolon was like $1,000 more than everyone. Now it's getting close with him, Flusha, and Crims. So with them being so close, I got to give the edge to Brolin being my favorite player in the Fnatic setting. And he's I always say this, but he's a very aggressive player. He's in those power positions. He's the guy that's always seems to be the first one in, right? He's initiating a lot of the gunfights. So I like the upside there at Brolin at 8K. And if you want to fade ZywOo, he's going to be super popular. You could look to the other side here with Brolin. I think Brolin, for that reason, right? Let's just talk about strategy, right? Because a lot of players don't like playing players on both sides of the game. So ZywOo is going to be really, really popular tomorrow. People are going to go Vitality. That's going to make Fnatic very low owned, right? Because if everyone's going to play ZywOo, again, most people do not like playing players on both sides of the game if it's a bigger slate like this. So I think for that reason alone, it's just going to make these Fnatic guys really low owned. But again, you can make an argument I think the optimal pivot there, if you wanted to, for GPP is play Brolon over Zywoo. And that's something I'm honestly somewhat considering. Zywoo has been absolutely dominant, right? He has been killing it. His ownership is going to be through the roof. But again, for GPPs, I think you can make the argument to fade. I think the guy I would look to as a pivot would be Brolon there for about $800 less. So yeah, I do like Brolon a lot there at that price. Flusha, Crims at 7.8 and 7.4K are very similar plays. They have very similar numbers. I always slightly give the edge to Crims. Now, Crims, if you look at ownership for Fnatic, it always seems to be Brolon being the highest owned, then Crims, then Flusha. So if you want the lowest owned of the three, it's going to be Flusha. That's just what we've seen recently. And again, they have similar numbers. Brolon is 0.74 and 0.66 with KD, Crims 0.69 and 0.65, then Flusha 0.7 and 0.66. So right, they're all very similar. JW is viable as well at 6.8K. He's been playing pretty well using that off, and he's got even KD. Not as much upside as the other three guys, but if you wanted to go a little Fnatic stack in that, it's going to be, these guys are going to be very, very low owned, just again, for that reason of Zywoo's going to be chalk. People don't like playing players on both sides. This Fnatic side is going to be low owned. So if you want to go like a full Fnatic stack, I don't hate that idea for GPPs. Golden's to stay away. I know he has had some decent games recently, but his numbers in the last few months are just not good enough for me to consider him on this slate. So let's now talk about players I would consider for cash games for captain, right? So it's a pretty short list, to be honest, for me. I would just avoid this first game for cash games if we're just talking about captains. But the Vici side, right, this is where I would consider Almond, Jamyoung, Kays. Those three look like really good, cash game captains. And then Zywoo. I think those are the three guys, or the four guys I would consider for cash. Again, the Mouse Esports side, NS, it's a little bit tough because that game's a pick-em. This one's basically a pick-em. I think you could make the argument for Rops and then Alu, too, for cash games. But if we're just talking about safety, right, it's probably those Vici guys and then Zywoo. But for GPPs, right, again, I made the argument. Personally, I haven't really messed around too much with roster construction, but I might go with the Zywoo fade in GPPs just because I know how high owned he's going to be. I know he's such a good player. He's an optimal play for sure tomorrow. But I don't know. You got to feel like a down game is going to come from him soon, and that might be a shot I'm willing to take in this slate. Again, this first game, Order versus Avant, it's a pick-em. I think that game is going to go very low-owned, not as well-known players, but there's definitely upside on both sides of the game. Right on the Order side, Alistar, Rikke, even Valiance, and Ustella have had upside. On the Avant side, definitely Sterling, but Blitz looks pretty decent there at his price. The Mouse Esports side, right, Rops, Frozen, Woxic. The reason I like this team a lot is because you know where that production is coming from. You know it's those three guys. On the end side, right, it's a Lou for me, and then probably Jampy down below is a value option if you want to go that route. The Beyond side, I think there's an outside chance they could pull it off, in an upset here. But I think Olivia, QQ got to be the ones I would consider if that's where you want to go. And the Vici side, again, these are the cash game plays. Almond, Jamyoung, Kays have been doinking. They're the biggest hitters of the day. They're going to be popular. And then Vitality versus Fnatic, again, Zywoo for cash games. Even Zywoo for GPPs. He's such a good play, but I just might try to get very risky and fade him and hope he doesn't go off. I know it's a super, super contrarian play, or a super risky play, I should say, fading him. But that I might pull the trigger with that. And then the Fnatic side, right, Brolon, these guys are just going to be low owned because people don't like playing players on both sides of the game. Now, you could really play Zywoo and Brolon together, right? Both those guys have pretty big upside. Obviously, Zywoo has more upside, and if you think that game stays close, then that's certainly a viable build too. I think that is going to do it for the video, guys. So if you have been enjoying the content so far, I really appreciate it. If you could like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell. Guys, hitting the notification bell is the biggest thing. It helps me out enormously with getting more views, trying to make this channel continue to grow. I know it's slow growth. It's esports since we don't have regular sports. But again, regular sports coming back soon. NBA about 2 months. And we have golf starting next week. There's a lot of positives. So until then, though, we'll continue to put out these esports videos. Call of Duty, again, no tournament this weekend. That will be next weekend. I will have videos for that. But thanks again for everyone to come and check the video. I really do appreciate it. Hope you guys all stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you all in the next one.